the unknown is an essential ingredient. Otherwise you get a fixed routine, and that is not enlivening.
If you want to be creative, experimentation, seeing a moment of opportunity and following on the impulse. You don't know if you're going to succeed, but somehow you allowed it. You saw the moment, felt the impulse, and you went with it.
When we watch soccer, something happens that has nothing to do with soccer and everything to do with it. Welcome to the Golden Ball, where depth psychology and the beautiful game help us play life better. My name is John O'Brien, former World Cup soccer player and sports psychologist.
My name is Michiel Klerk. I'm a psychotherapist and lover of the game.
And my name is Akke-Jeanne Klerk. I'm a personal development coach and a Jungian teacher.
So we're going to talk about creativity today. And I was able to attend the first U.S. game against Paraguay. And reflecting back, there was a moment I remember, it was in the second half. And the U.S. was kind of pressing Paraguay high. I think McKinney kind of pressed someone. The guy decided to make a pass back to a center back, which is a risky pass. And Malik Tillman, midfielder, read it and stepped in. And he did this great first-time touch to Ricardo Pepi and the center forward. And it looked like he was in. And I remember thinking like, oh, he's in. He's going to take a touch and shot. Like my mind was already thinking what was going to happen next. And he did instead of doing that, he did a one-touch back to Tillman. And you could hear the crowd just kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? Like something totally unpredictable happened. Tillman took a touch. The defender closed him down. He was able to get a shot off. The keeper blocked it. But I was just reflecting back on that moment, how it was something really different from what I expected and what everyone in the stadium really expected. And it was kind of a beautiful moment of something different happening. So I thought that'd be a good starting point for us as we kind of lean into thinking about creativity in sport and creativity in life and what depth psychology and sports psychology have to say about it.
Yeah, that's a fascinating example, John. And fantastic that you were live present at the game. That must have been a joy. I think it's a great example on how in sports there is a combination between practicing a skill, being ready for the game, and then having an original response to an original situation, and how to be creative in the moment is part of what the exploration we have today. And I think top sport can help us understand what they do. It does. If you didn't train, if you didn't practice, this would never be able to happen. Yet only training and practice doesn't allow for creativity to be there either. So it's creativity is an interesting phenomenon to explore.
Yeah, and I noticed as well, like the moment that you're describing, John, there have been several moments like that while watching the game, that or games, that something happens that's unexpected, like you say, and it's going in a different direction than one would expect. So there's something really original in the direction. That is part of that creativity. Like, oh, you couldn't expect it, or it's something different. There is something almost other, unknown in it that suddenly surfaces.
Yeah, that enters. I mean, yeah. It comes also to my own mind when I played soccer and as an amateur, and I remember passing, dribbling towards a person, and then I lobbed it with my right foot over the person to the right, and I remember thinking afterwards, that happened to me. It's not. I didn't think about it before. I didn't really think in the moment. Oh, I now go to the right. It just happened, and as something appears to enter us because we're prepared.
Yeah, that's such a great way to describe it. I'm thinking of the term like conscious control, right? And I think this is a beauty of Jungian psychology. And also what I do here in my counseling room is like in some ways we're opening up to an intelligence in our system. And you have a great way of describing this, and I'd love to throw this back to you after this, but we're opening up to a different intelligence coming in that's not about conscious control, right? Conscious control is super useful in a lot of situations, and it's necessary. It's part of our makeup, and the benefit of conscious control, letting go and kind of trusting other parts of ourselves. So, Michiel, can you tell us a little bit more about how you think about, I guess, the practice of inviting creativity in?
What comes to mind is the old notion in, for example, the Greek tradition, where the writers or the musicians would think they have a muse, and they petition the muse to be present, so that the muse can live through them and deliver a piece of music or a poem or something, what these days sometimes is being called as I got a download. And it is an imaginal way of merging with the creative spirit. So you have somewhat the I, the ego in Jungian psychology, and the creative spirit, or in the Greek tradition, the muse or the daimon, or the Roman name for it is the genius. So everyone has a genius and creative spirit, and they have it, and they are not a creative spirit. And the way is to become a vessel and invite the spirit in, so that it can live through us. We can talk more about how to do that and how to tend this muse or daimon or genius. Yeah, that is one way of thinking about creativity.
Yeah, and it links also to talent, I think. Like talent in Latin means something like an inclination. So if you have a talent, you just feel an impulse to do something. So you might have an impulse to play with a ball. You might have an impulse to sing. That is the talent, but it doesn't say anything about how big the talent is. But it shows that maybe creativity and that talent impulse, you feel it inside of your body. So that's how the daimon or the genius speaks to you, really through that impulse, I think. So how was that for you, John? You've been playing soccer. How did you relate to that impulse within?
Yeah, a lot of playing soccer and like learning to be a professional soccer player, you're practicing, you're trying this stuff out. And later, as a psychologist, I'm thinking about it and finding the words for it. So it's kind of fascinating. I love this idea of like a host where, I'd have my pregame rituals that would kind of allow me to feel calm enough to kind of, I think it's inviting in that spirit of play and my creativity and my ability to kind of let go of conscious control and trust my skills and my talent. Sports psychology, the term automaticity of skills comes up a lot, where it's like there's another part of us that just knows how to do it, right? You've repeated it so many times, and that's really what you need to bring forward. So I never thought of it as like rituals to invite in that spirit, but that's a really great way of thinking about it, because I had my pregame routines. I'd meditate beforehand. I'd do some imagery. There was a way before games where I would just kind of, go do a little light stretching first, then I would come back. So there was this whole actually a whole weekly rhythm that would work around soccer games. And I think inviting in that spirit.
Yeah, and the current day might call that superstition, which is a term because our culture has lost a natural way of being in touch with the other world. And the other world is the world where the daimon, the genius, the muse lives. And superstition is a way of doing a ritual And you see a lot of players, first the left shoe, the right shoe, they touch themselves in some way before they step on the field. And people have it in all kinds of ways in their day-to-day life. And it is actually, if you bring a little bit of attention to it, you turn the habits or the superstitions into an active way of engaging with the talent, the genius.
Yeah, and it sounds like you really become a vessel for that creative impulse that you can follow on. That when the daimon speaks to you through that creative impulse, you want to make sure that you're there, that you can tune into it. And I think, and that's what I also like about the ritual. It's not something you do just once a week, but there's an entire set of rituals leading up to it, and listening to that impulse from within. That's probably not just happening on the pitch; it's also happening outside the pitch when you're outside the pitch. Yeah.
That is a beautiful idea. Like, and I would love to like look at that specifically, like how a team kind of culture invites in, you know, this creative spirit as game day comes closer, and what actually shifts. If you had, you know, it could be a fly on the wall in a team. I bet there would be some really observable things of what people are doing without even knowing it.
Yeah, and a really good coach can does that. And they allow for the team to be in touch with the other world and get in some cohesion. And not such a great coaches don't think that direction, and even whether they do it instinctively or not, you can see it play out. And
yeah.
Yes, I wonder, Michiel, what would be conditions that are really favorable for inviting the spirit in?
Well, it is ritual, and ritual is a word for grinding this reality so that it becomes open to the other world. And the other world is not some distant place behind some star far away, but it is literally just in the here and now. And Jung would call it the collective unconscious. So how do you get in touch with different aspects of the unconscious, or different energy states, or a more indigenous way, the other world or the daimon? And ritual is that. And ritual can be handed down, that you do the same things, or you personalize it. But the main thing is that you bring attentive awareness to your actions. So we could create a ritual out of anything. Light a candle, say a prayer, do a meditation, first your left shoe, then your right shoe. But when you do that, first the left shoe, then the right shoe, maybe you talk to the creative spirit. You say, creative spirit, I'm now getting ready. I cannot do this on my own. I need you. So let's do this together. And then you do your left shoe, and then you do your right shoe. And then you create conditions that are most favorable. You never know. Sometimes the creative spirit doesn't completely show up. And especially in soccer, it's difficult because you play at 3 p.m. and then the spirit needs to be there. Where I've seen, for example, when I visit the indigenous cultures in South Africa, you go to the Sangoma, the healer, and and then you wait, and the Sangoma, in its own way, gets in touch with the creative spirit. In his case, it's a healing spirit, a healing genius. And sometimes he says, I can't feel it, he's not here, come back later. In South Africa, that's no problem. The indigenous culture knows that how it works. If our doctor in the hospital here would say, I don't feel I'm in touch with the creative daimon, come back later, you get you get sued. but but it is a ritual that does it, and ritual is a focused way of being present. And you can feel when the ritual is active, when it feels alive. To make one more step is like in church, they do a lot of rituals. Some churches more than others, but church does ritual. Some people sit in the church and they feel the aliveness of the ritual. They feel the aliveness of the mass. Other people sit there and they feel nothing. And so they're not engaged in the ritual. The ritual is not alive, or the person performing it is not bringing aliveness to it, like a bad coach, by which the congregation gets lifted up into a different state of consciousness. So focus, attention, aliveness, and then it doesn't matter much what you do, but that you do something that helps one transition into a relationship or an embodiment of the creative talent.
Yeah, and as I hear you talk, it sounds like becoming that vessel. You need to also have your emotion. You need to regulate your emotions. And I know, John, that you work a lot with emotional regulation and the nervous system, because you need a certain calmness to be receptive.
Yeah. And I think going off of this conversation, like one place of ritual, right? There's the inviting in. And I think superstition sometimes, or some things, could be about warding off. And I think that perspective is often something I work with people where it's like they're doing something to try to get rid of tension. And sometimes you need to have some way of expelling tension, right? I'm nervous before the game. Okay, shake it off, take some deep breaths. But it's a different thing when you're inviting in something else to help you out. That's like a different perspective. That's really an important shift, I think. And with emotional regulation, like you said, sometimes the spirit doesn't visit you and you still have to go out and play the game. You know, sometimes it's not. And you have to, people make a big deal of that. Oh, I'm not in the right space. I'm struggling. I'm tight, whatever, you know, and it's like, okay, I'm not, but I still know these skills well enough. I still can do it. Often when people do this, it's not as enjoyable, the game. They can still be effective, but it's more effortful. It's less enjoyable. It's what you could call kind of like clutch performance, where you're using a lot of conscious control to try to make it happen. And you can still do pretty good in that. And this is people's lives. You're going to have moments where you have to do this, where the spirit isn't going to be kind of flowing through you in the same way. So those are just things I wanted to add to it, that I think really speak to managing ourselves with the spirit coming and going and being kind of okay with that.
Yeah, and what I see there as well is willpower. You know, in some players in the World Cup as well. I totally understand. You know, the game is those 90 minutes. You're there, and it needs to happen. And of course, you hope that the spirits are with you. But you're in the field. But you can see that some players are really in there with the willpower, almost with that attitude, preventing the creativity to be there as well.
Yeah, and then some players live too much in the idea that this vessel is just an I. I do these things. I can do this. I am capable of these things. Then it becomes all up on me. And what if you loosen that up and invite the unknown in, and then it's not just I need to do this. And if you live in too much of an I, this vessel is a singular I vessel, then you get, that's one way why people get that way. And of course the willpower is there when the spirit doesn't show up. You still have to go. And you have a set of skills that works, but that could help people. Also, the people that listen to this in when they want to write, and invite and tend to the muse, or if they want to cook. If you have a cooking spirit, you will know if it's there or not, and you can apply this to your own life.
Yeah, so being in that right vessel, what I hear is letting go of your fears, or letting go of the tension, letting go of the idea of I need to do it. It's really co-creation between you as the ego, the Latin for I, and something larger or something different, the unconscious, we would say in Jungian psychology. That it's really a co-creation. And I think where it links to our previous episode is letting go of your identity as well, and becoming a more fluid identity really invites creativity. You know, I saw this interview with Mbappé that I thought was really interesting, that he used to play on the left side of the field, then he was moved to the right side of the field. These days, or the latest games, he was playing in the middle. And he says, I'm really open to wherever they place me. It really, he really has that fluidity in skills, but also in the container or so. I'm not sure what it is, but I thought that's quite remarkable to be so open.
Yeah. Mental flexibility, right? That's, I guess, a byproduct maybe of the spirit being there and it ties into creativity. When we're creative, we can have a lot of mental flexibility. I really like this relationship idea and depositioning the ego in some ways, right? Because that's a place where a lot of athletes, right, or young people learning to be humans, and that's a place that a lot of athletes get stuck, right? You have kind of the spirit comes in, you can have this huge rush of emotions and energy. And when you kind of think that I did that, usually after the game, you think of all those rituals before the game to invite in the spirit, but there's not many rituals after the game to like let it go and come back to being a person again, to come back after that kind of huge high. And so I really like that idea of like welcoming it in and welcoming it out. And I find that for athletes, if they can kind of think a little bit more about their sport as a practice, right? It's kind of a practice in doing these kind of things. You're letting the spirit in, you're letting it out, and you're keeping kind of a stable ego. That's really a beneficial shift for them. It's not all about external success. You don't know what's going to happen with that. But it's a continual practice, like Mbappe probably has, of showing up, knowing his best routines to kind of welcome it and then let it go and be kind of a normal person in some ways after.
Yeah. That is beautiful to have a thank you, gratitude practice after you have been visited with by the creative spirit. And that keeps you sane and human too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I was thinking back on my playing career and creativity, I thought of a moment, and for me, so often with creativity on the field, and as you're watching the World Cup, I wonder if you could think about this, but there's usually a moment where there's some tension, some risk. So I was thinking, there's a time at Ajax when I was playing left back, we were pushed up in the other team's half. So there's a lot of empty space behind me and just a goalie. Our right back decides to do a big switch to me, and he hits it way over my head and towards the sideline. And part of me thinks like, okay, I could just kind of flick it out for a throw in. Like that's kind of maybe a little bit of an automatic, simple response. But I don't know. I got excited about like, oh, this is a moment I could try something. So I remember like turning and the ball's flying over my head. I'm headed towards the sideline. Our benches are there, the opposing coach, and the opposition forwards pressing up on me right there. So it comes over. I feel this tension in my body. I'm able to slowly like bring the ball down. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a plan at this point, right? But I'm like, I'm just going to try something here. I'm able to control it just enough so it bounces up slightly. And then I'm able to do a Cruyff turn as I get the pressure from the forward. And I find this space and I get this huge adrenaline rush afterwards of like, there's so much tension there. I didn't know what was going to happen. And then, well, it worked out. And I was able to move the ball forward and make a pass. And the stadium was like, oh, I had one of those moments. So I think back on like how pressure and maybe a little bit of inhibition, right? Stopping an easy response, like inviting in kind of like that moment of uncertainty, and how that has something to do with creativity at the high levels, where it's like, okay, I'm okay being in a space where I'm not sure what's going to happen. And there's a little danger or risk.
I like there what you're saying, that it asks for experimentation. If you want to be creative, experimentation, seeing a moment of opportunity and following on the impulse. You don't know if you're going to succeed, but somehow you allowed it. You saw the moment, felt the impulse, and you went with it. And I think that experimentation is really important. Because it's more about the attitude that you have, that you're willing to try or be curious about what if that something new can actually emerge.
Yeah. The unknown is an essential ingredient. Yeah. Otherwise, you get a fixed routine, and that is not a livening. That is a ceremony. And if it's in the ritual, there's the unknown is part of it. And then you'll see, you don't know. Reminds me of a while ago I saw a documentary of Picasso, and then they have a glass wall, and then they have the camera behind it, and Picasso is making drawings, and he just stands there and makes something, and you look at it and think, whoa, sensational. And then Picasso looks at it and shakes his head and cleans it and does it again, makes something else, and it's again beautiful. He cleans it again, and then he makes something, and he looks at it and yeah, that's it. And so he allows the creative spirit to flow through him, and then on a certain moment he goes like, ah, yeah, there we go. And so you need to have that. You need to allow it to go, with the risk that doesn't mean if you're embodied by the creative spirit that things work out. Mm-hmm. But if you're not embodied by the creative spirit, it's definitely not going to work out.
Yeah, there's like a working component. There's also, for people in general, like creativity, I think, is just a good, healthy thing. Like, it helps our mental health. It taps into different parts of our brain, different parts of our world, like just different parts of our being that's just useful but good in ways. And it's something often we can get bogged down in like to-dos and practical and stuff like that. But those moments can really be enlivening.
Yeah. Rick Rubin defines creativity as an attitude towards life, or it's a way of relating to life. And that really takes it away from just that one creative moment, but that there is something in your attitude towards life and the way that you respond that has a level of fluidity and experimentation and curiosity in it. Like what I also saw in that interview with Mbappé was that the French coach asked him, after your career, what do you want to do with football? Will you become a coach? And he sat with it just for a little bit, and he said, I'm giving myself the freedom to decide in the moment. If I want to become a businessman, I'll do that. If I want to become a trainer, I'll do that. But if I want to do nothing for a bit, I'll do that. And I thought that is such a good illustration of living with the impulse, deciding in the moment rather than planning what you'll do. Right now, the impulse is to play soccer, so he'll continue doing that. And by then, he'll sit with it and see what the impulse is, and he will follow up on it, which is really a creative lifestyle.
Yeah,
super creative.
Yeah,
and so hard, so hard to do, right? Like, to stay with it and feel open and trusting, right? I think we were talking about kind of the conditions, right? Worry, think about worry, planning, different things that come up, whether it's from our kind of ego or from our self, different anxieties that can come up that really kind of take us away from maybe a little bit more of an openness, right? That are going to close us off, ways we're going to avoid certain things.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be present in the moment, because that is where the creative spirit flows through and into the world. And if you already prepare, you can sometimes see it in a soccer player when they run towards the goalie of the opponent with the ball, and that they start thinking, shall I go left or right? And you see that they become a little bit more clunky in their movements, and most of the time it doesn't work out. And if they and what with these great talents comes natural, because they're so good, they're trusting it, comes is that they just run like Mbappe, and then they can make the decision. Something in them makes the decision in the moment, and that has the highest chance to be interesting, successful. So yeah, you have to approach life as every day, every moment as a fresh phenomenon.
Yeah, and I'd pay attention to the moments where we want to close down, right? Like those moments when you can feel, because a lot of this is, I think the body is a big part in creativity. There's just, I think, more of a kind of unconscious in the mind, so your body and your intuition's kind of acting. So paying attention to the body and when it might tighten, right, around things, and just seeing if you can loosen and open up a little bit more, right? Because sometimes we're not even sure, right, what we're kind of tightening up against. But if there's a little bit of openness, something else can kind of enter our consciousness and gives us some freedom to then kind of work with that.
Yeah, and in psychology, those are trauma responses, survival mechanisms. So you see quite a bunch of soccer players not getting to the peak of their ability because they haven't dealt with some trauma in their life, and the survival responses that come with it, and they block genuine creativity.
But even without trauma, I can see that I killed my own creativity several times in my life. You know, like if I have a good idea that I feel like maybe for a young platform, creating a course, and then thinking, but who is interested in it? So even there, I'm already thinking about the outcome or about an audience, rather than following my own impulse, giving myself the freedom to see what wants to express through me. I'm thinking like, oh, will it be useful? So I'm more interested in the outcome than in the process, which is of course a really good way to kill the fun and to kill the project.
Yeah, there's such my first introduction to sports psychology came through this book, The Inner Game of Tennis. So I first I love this. And it was talking about this Galway, and it was self one and self two. What you're illustrating was a self two, like something comes, kind of some impulse comes from the body. It feels natural. And then there's the judger that comes in, the evaluator, right, and shuts it down. And a lot of Galway's work was about kind of noticing those two different things and trying to be, when you're performing, trying to be in self two. Yeah, I think it's a little more complicated than that when we're working with people, because that self one is valuable in certain ways. We have to learn to work with it. But it can definitely be a shutdown when you start judging and analyzing things, a shutdown to our creative spirit.
Yeah, you know, in the coaching world, sometimes metaphors are used like if you want to know if a seed is growing, you don't look in the ground all the time. Is it already happening? You know, there is something of creativity and a growth process that seems to have its own timeline. So do you trust the timeline of the unknown? And it has more to do with observing rather than, I don't know, pulling grass. It doesn't grow faster if you pull it, you know. There's something with talent and creativity as well.
And how do you create your if your body is the garden? How do you create a garden or an embodied space that allows for these creative ways to come and flourish. It brings the notion of talent also slightly different, that even that the creative spirit or the daimon is already somewhat fully formed, and your body need to, and your skill set need to catch up so that it can come through you. So it's not even that the talent is a little seed that needs to grow. It's you that needs to get in a place by which the spirit can go through you. Because we all know those people that are 3 years old and make sensational drawings, or at 5 play piano, that cannot be explained by some ego activity. That's the talent already fully there, flowing through.
So acting on that impulse, what a child, of course, spontaneously does, it acts on impulses, and somewhere through our life we learn to adapt and maybe ignore some of the impulses. But if we want to foster our own creativity, probably it's good to be aware of the impulses, and then still we would need to distinguish between what is the impulse wanting of me? Is it really a genuine expression, or is it maybe a habitual response, or a psychological complex got triggered and it's really a fear response? So what is the impulse really? That's where psychological work comes in.
Yeah, and it's so valuable to have someone else in there with you to help you distinguish those things, right? Like what's a natural impulse and what's a habitual kind of thing arising from the background. So what would be our kind of, I guess, takeaways thinking about creativity and, watching soccer at the World Cup and people learning from it and using these ideas for their own lives? What do you guys think would be some kind of top takeaways?
I think as an observer, go with where your natural attention goes. So maybe there's one particular soccer player that jumps out for whatever reason, but follow even that impulse in looking at the person that somehow interests you, or there are parts of the game. The moment that really fascinates me is the penalty moment. Like somehow that I sometimes watch it back and back because there's something fascinating there. So that's also an impulse. That's also a spontaneous thing that apparently something is happening there and I give into it, like repeat, like look again, like what's happening. Yeah. So that's maybe for the observer.
That's great. I love that. How about you, Michiel?
I would say practice rituals, entrance rituals, exit rituals, to tend, nurture, nourish the spirit that is already there, and then see what happens, build a relationship, play, and that is. That's a big practice. Mm-hmm. How about you, John? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, this idea, what I'm taking away from this conversation, this idea of relationship with and kind of positioning with forces, right? And there is an element of openness and inviting things in and being okay when things don't move the way you want. So that's kind of a psychological insight that I'm taking away from this.